This is Ray.
This is Andy.
This is FDS CFL Season 3, Andy. Episode 22.
How's it going, Ray? Nice shirt.
Hey, I'm going with the Shoesmith Flutie jersey.
Very nice.
Don't want people to think I'm supporting the NFL. This is all CFL, baby.
Not
CFL.
Exactly. Not like you were wearing Bills apparel in last week's show.
I know, that was a mistake. I forgot to do my wardrobe change.
Yeah, though, I mean, this Flutie jersey, though, it is clearly Buffalo Bills. There's no Bills logo. So
There's no Bills logo.
No. So it's just a Flutie jersey.
This could be an Alouettes jersey from back in the day, for all I know.
Exactly.
All right.
This episode, like all episodes, brought to you by Moose Light.
Moose Light, this stuff is scary good.
It's about to be. It's been a day, Ray. It's been a day. And if you need a
hat, shirt,
I am
jacket.
wearing that hat. Yeah, if you need any of this stuff, go see our buddies, the Doyles, or contact them online. Doyle's Corporate Image.
Doyle's Rule.
The Doyle's Rule.
DCI. Search DCI.
DCI.
All right.
Or Doyle's Corporate Image.
Andy, week 22. Week 20 is in the books.
20.
For the CFL.
Yeah. Let's run through.
It's episode 22 for us.
That's right.
But 20. I'm going to talk about 20 in a second. We've talked about it enough.
Yeah.
But we've got... there's some interesting games in this week.
Yeah.
Because we saw the return of Zach Collaros for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and it paid benefits immediately. Yeah. What'd you think of this game?
Well, honestly, that was the highlight of the CFL weekend for me for week 20. Calgary, like I was saying, Calgary needed to win the game because they wanted to be ahead of Saskatchewan. Winnipeg, they hadn't been playing well. They needed a spark. They went to Zach Collaros.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was just that steady Zach that you're used to. There were a few scares. You were worried about him taking a hit, but I think he made it clear that, like, thanks everybody for the concern, but I feel really good. And
yeah.
I do play football, right? So I understand what's going on. He had that one highlight play that was all over the place, Twitter, where he was scrambling. It looked like the biggest, slowest Johnny Manziel of all time, though he completed the throw. So I guess it was worth it.
We saw him when he was here in Moncton for Touchdown Atlantic. He looked good, Andy.
Oh, he did. Yeah, we saw him out.
He's in great shape. He looked good. I had big expectations for him in this game.
Well, we'll see. I think if he can stay healthy, he's a very good quarterback and probably the perfect quarterback for Winnipeg.
Yes,
going into next season. So Winnipeg wins the game 29-28. It was a tough. I mean, it's not like Bo made it easy on them. Calgary really needed to win the game. But they win that one. Run through some of the stats and the things that jumped out at you.
Couple things for me is Bo put up 350 yards, 4 touchdowns. So when you say he didn't make it easy, it wasn't easy.
No.
This was a tough game, start to finish. Zach Collaros goes 221, 2 touchdowns and an interception. He did drive them downfield for a game-winning field goal by Justin Medlock. Mm-hmm. And that's how Winnipeg won that game.
Yeah, heartbreaker. There's the CFL comes down to a lot of game-winning field goals.
It sure does.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of times, I think, another crazy thing about the Canadian game that I like so much is the whole, and maybe this applies to the CFL as well, right? Where you always play the one more play at the zero, or is that?
Yeah. So if
I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but yeah.
If time expires,
you got that one play.
You've got that one play.
Yeah, and I always find that interesting. The second game was Hamilton at Montreal. Now, you and I talked about it last week. Hamilton probably doesn't have much to play for, though we did expect Dane Evans to play. And they took out Montreal 38-26. Did he ever play well? Good thing I didn't change my fantasy lineup, but we'll get into that later.
I forgot mine, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We were thinking of taking them out, that all of the Hamilton players out, because we were thinking, they won't have much to play for. Well, good thing I didn't.
Dane Evans, 379 yards and 4 touchdowns and interception. Brandon Banks, Andy. Three touchdowns. He takes it to the bank.
Brandon Banks is the best player in the CFL. Like, he's the most dangerous player in the CFL. I don't think there's any question in my mind. There might be question in other people's minds. Let me know if you disagree. But what he can do, and in the different aspects of the game that he can kill you, Hey, he's the best player in the CFL.
Yeah, I agree.
Best player in the CFL.
I agree.
Ottawa visits Toronto in something we were not looking forward to at all. Argos fans that attended that game, I'm very happy that you got to see an absolute blowout as Toronto takes out Ottawa 39-9. I don't have a lot more to say about that game, really.
I don't have a lot to say about this, but I do have a comment later on the odds and ends, so we'll leave it till then.
Okay, perfect. And a big game for Saskatchewan going on the road to face Edmonton in Trevor Harris's return. It wasn't going to be easy for them, and just like Calgary, Saskatchewan needed to win the game. Unlike Calgary, Saskatchewan did win the game. 27-24. Edmonton didn't make it easy, but they pulled it out.
They did, and Harris had a good day for his first game back. 321 yards, touchdown, 2 interceptions. Fajardo, though, 429 yards and 2 touchdowns. The West is going to be really interesting as we head into the playoffs. There's so many good matchups that we're going to end up seeing.
You know, if you take a second and look back, I don't want to derail this too much, but if you take a second and look back at this year's CFL, the story early was all the injuries to the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But now that we're finished, we're near the finish line, the story of the CFL this year are these 2 new quarterbacks, Dane Evans and Cody Fajardo.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are not backups anymore. Fajardo got his extension. Who knows what's going to happen in Hamilton? Because, I mean, listen, you can't write off the most outstanding player in the league, Jeremiah Masoli, just because he got hurt. So who knows what's going to happen? But the story is no longer the injuries. Like, you know, we know Bo's going to play kind of well, but like Bo's sort of an afterthought to these new young guns that are playing.
He is. And don't forget, we're also got to talk about Caleros, who's played for 3 CFL teams in 1 season.
Exactly. So there's a lot of storylines, but I'm glad the storyline has shifted away from just the injuries and is now talking about these quarterbacks. Ray, what are your take it and leave it for this week?
It's the last week of the season, Andy.
My gosh.
I'm taking it all the way. No, I'll tell you one thing about this CFL, and I know you people love it. For a 9-team league, this is comparable to a baseball season.
It is.
It really is. Like, I'm sure, and we'll talk about the Schooners later on. I'm sure if we had the Schooners here, I'd be still like, you know, but my goodness.
The season would be shorter if we had a 10th team, though.
Yeah, you could cut this season down by 6 weeks. Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
I know it's tradition, and that's probably why, but yeah, this is ridiculous for a 9-team league. And at the very least, we need the 10th team to show up and a bunch of bye weeks get eliminated. And this thing gets shortened by, my gosh, at least 2 weeks? Oof. I'd like more, but I'm thinking 2 at least, right? So anyways, you're what are you leaving?
My leave it this week. Well, here's the interesting thing. Before I put on this Flutie shirt tonight, given again once by Mike Shoesmith, I had on my Ottawa Red Blacks pullover.
Yep.
And you know what? I left my Ottawa Red Blacks pullover on the couch.
I see it over there.
Right over there.
Yep.
And I have a good feeling, I'm going to call it right now, that the Ottawa Red Blacks are going to leave Rick Campbell out on the street when this season's over. He's got to be gone. This team has turned into shambles after last year's Grey Cup appearance. And between Rick Campbell and the GM, one has got to go. And if I'm the owner of this team, both are out the door come Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know that I would be as harsh, but at the very least, like the GM and whoever's making the personnel decisions on who to bring back and who not to bring back, especially when the most important position, quarterback, is in play, has some answering to do, because they went from having a great quarterback situation to the worst.
Yeah. I just want to speak to the management of Ottawa for a second.
Oh,
if I can.
okay. Yeah, you go ahead. I'll sit back.
This isn't actually to the management. This is to the ownership. Can I go back to the ownership?
You talk to them all, right?
All right. Ownership. The Ottawa Red Blacks were my first love in us launching this CFL podcast.
Right.
And that was mainly because of my brother at the time, Trevor Harris. And I loved the Ottawa Red Blacks. When we went to Ottawa to see the game last year, my goodness, it was
you went
fantastic.
to the Grey Cup.
Plus, I went to the Grey Cup.
I think the Grey Cup is what really
maybe
hooked
the Grey Cup really hooked me there too. But man, I love Ottawa, and man, I love the Red Blacks. But You guys got to get rid of Rick Campbell, as I've already mentioned. And I want to let you know, I am available for that position. I know football, Andy. I know football. I know how to control the clock under 3 minutes. I know when a quarterback is not getting the production that I need to go to another quarterback. And I know Jennings is not the answer for that quarterback position. I know I could have done a better job as head coach than Coach Campbell this year. And let me do it for you in 2020. Let me do it for you.
I've got 2 comments. Number 1, I would pay a significant amount of money to watch you act as a head coach for an entire game. And the only downfall would be that there's zero chance TSN would be willing to make that a live mic game after they met you, which is what I would need it to be. Well, but I would love to see you juggling
I think it'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think that if the CFL wants to boost their numbers, if we want to talk CFL 3.0, Andy, why don't we make it a reality show?
3.0.
Let's make the CFL Ottawa Redblacks coaching position a reality show. Right. Let's get the top 20 football minds across this country that want to be head coaches.
Yep.
And let's duke it out at the MFL. We'll become MFL coaches here in the Maritimes.
Yep.
And the best coach becomes the coach of the Ottawa Redblacks. I'm all for it. Let's do it.
All right. He's kidding around, folks. But anyways, okay. This is when we usually talk about our power rankings. We did not release our power rankings digitally this week, Ray. We ran into some schedule conflicts. However, I can tell you how my final week of CFL power rankings would shake out. Hamilton will remain at the top. Dane Evans has me believing that they can win the Grey Cup. We won't make any predictions just yet. Saskatchewan's going to move into number 2 now that they're in the top spot in the West, though. Yeah. There's another week to go here. Calgary is only going to drop to 3, for me anyways, despite losing to Winnipeg, because I'd like to see a little bit more Zach Collaros, and I bet the other coaches would like to see a little bit more of what Zach Collaros is going to be in the Winnipeg offense to plan for him. Winnipeg moves up to 4, though. Montreal will drop to 5, and then it's the rest all the way. Edmonton 6, BC 7, Toronto 8, and Ottawa 9.
I'll go with you, Andy.
Yeah?
I'll go with you tonight.
You agree with me?
Yeah.
Good. All right. So
let's go to odds and ends.
Let's talk a bunch of odds and ends here.
Okay, so first of all, what's interesting about the CFL, again, we're in week 21. The East is set. It's ready to roll.
Yeah.
The West is where we're still trying to find out who's going to be playing who.
We know who's crossing over. We just don't know.
We don't know. Yeah, we know Edmonton's crossing over.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know who is going to be the first seed and who's going to play in that semifinal match.
Right.
And where will that match be?
Right.
So that will all get sorted out this weekend. Winnipeg's sitting at home on their couch. They're going to be watching to see where they're going next week. So that's interesting. Here's a big interesting story. McLeod Bethel Thompson, after his thrashing of Ottawa, I want to know if he's making a solid case to return in 2020 as their number 1 option for quarterback.
Well, I think he is, but I'm a little worried about it because it's the same thing as last year. McLeod Bethel Thompson is just a mixed bag of performances, and you never know which one you're going to get. And last year, he impressed enough that they thought this guy, probably should lead us into next year. We need other options to compete against him in camp, but he's done enough that we think it's there. It's been the same shaky experience this season. So, listen, there's only so many starting CFL quarterbacks in the league. There's only so many starting caliber CFL quarterbacks or starting caliber Canadian football quarterbacks that are willing to come to the CFL. So, at the end of the day, if I asked you, Ray, and let's include why can't I think of his name? Hamilton, Jeremiah Masoli. Let's include Masoli and anybody who's been injured. Is McLeod Bethel Thompson one of the 9 best quarterbacks in the CFL?
Well, the way I'm going to answer that question is if we go back to one of our podcasts from earlier this year, and I can't tell you the exact episode.
Who knows? It was because it was 20 weeks ago.
But my leave it was to Jim Pop for bringing back Franklin and
he signed Franklin. Yeah.
Franklin,
McLeod
Thompson, and there was another one.
Yeah, who was the other guy there? I don't remember.
Anyways,
who knows?
I ripped them for it.
Yep.
And it got some national press because Pop got fired over this decision.
Right.
And now that Pinball Clemens is in the front office, there's no way he's going to bring back somebody from this mess in 2019. There's no question. I think it's going to be a new face in 2020 because Clemens wants to start putting his stamp on the Argos again. And you can't do that by bringing a returning quarterback after a 4-81 record.
You're right, but you also can't put your stamp on something if there's no stamp to be placed, if you know what I mean, right? And there's only so many quarterbacks, so it's going to be very interesting. But if I was a Toronto Argonauts diehard fan, if you asked me, like, do I want McLeod Bethel Thompson back? I would be conflicted again, like last season, because I would say, you know what? I've seen enough flashes of brilliance to think it's there, but now we've had 2 seasons in a row where the brilliance doesn't stick. And it's rocky.
I've been hammering Montreal all year for this, and maybe Pinball Clemens will take my advice. I got 2 words for you, Pinball. Hugo Richard.
There you go.
All right. Let's talk about the feeders.
Wait a minite. Pinball Clemens is in Toronto, not in Montreal.
I know. Maybe you should go make a deal for Hugo Richard.
Oh, I got you. Listen, yeah, I think that would be interesting if Hugo got a shot somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, we're good.
Give him a shot.
I understand.
All right. Let's talk about in Canadian football, the main feeder system in Canada comes from U Sports Football.
Right.
And
arguably that in the American
but they got to have so many Canadians, right? So that's coming from U Sports primarily.
Exactly.
U Sports. The season just ended for university football across Canada.
Yep.
The playoffs start this weekend. Mm-hmm. Now, here's one of the problems with U Sports football in Canada versus the NCAA.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't find any information on it. Mm-hmm. All right. I'm a U Sports official, and I cannot tell you who's in the Can West, which is Manitoba to BC.
Wow.
I can't tell you who's in the Can West finals.
Wow.
And I searched all over the U Sports website. It's very difficult. But I can tell you this, and I couldn't even figure out who's in the playoffs I can tell you by looking at the standings. Laval's off this week, and Montreal's taking on McGill. Okay? That's what I believe. But 3 big games are coming up. Waterloo is versus Western, and Guelph is taking on McMaster. Mm-hmm. And our good friend Taylor Burns, yep. Taylor Burns plays for McMaster. Mm-hmm. So that's a big game to watch if you're from here in the Atlantic, because one of our own is playing for McMaster.
And I believe Taylor's starting at either right guard or left guard for them. It's one or the other, but he's a big boy.
He's a big boy, 58.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the AUS, okay? Because the AUS, there's lots of interesting stuff going on. So Acadia has won the first seed. They went 8-0 on the season.
Yes.
They just got by Mount A on the weekend, Andy.
Yeah.
You were at the game, and Mount A missed a field goal from 55 yards just to the right is what I was told.
Thankfully, Mount A clinched that final playoff spot anyways.
Yeah.
Though, unfortunately, they don't get to host there.
They don't get to host, which would have been unbelievable. So,
amazing.
For the first time in the history of the AUS, the semifinal game is taking place outside of the Atlantic provinces.
The province of Quebec.
It's in Quebec, just outside of Montreal. I've been told it's about 2.5 hours from Montreal at Bishop's University.
Yeah.
There's 4 guys from Atlantic Canada going up to work that game. They leave Friday, come home Sunday. So the interesting thing is whoever wins that game will be into the Lonely Bowl at Acadia. I haven't had a chance to tell you this yet, but I will be in the Lonely Bowl again this year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
So Lonely Bowl in the UTEC.
I hope if Mount A is in the Lonely Bowl, then I may have to make the trip down to Acadia. And man, the trip to Acadia is rough.
It's fun, though.
Will Phil's a drive, buddy.
It's a drive, but I do it. I've done it. This will be like my 5th time there this year.
I know you're used to it, so yeah.
All right, let's talk some Atlantic Schooners.
Oh boy,
because that's what everybody wants to hear our thoughts on. Andy, when you look at the two of us, and when you look at our beliefs of whether this team was going to come to fruition, actually become a reality.
Yep.
I think I've always been the more optimist of the two of us.
Yeah.
In the fact that my ratios were always crazy. I think at one point I was at 90%.
Oh yeah.
Done deal.
Yeah, yeah.
90% done deal.
Yeah.
I am at a firm 1.5% right now.
1.5. Okay.
1.5. It is dismal as an Atlantic Schooners fan right now.
And I am approaching 0. I'm definitely below 1% at this point. We talked about it last show, so I won't repeat all the same things. The fact that the stadium proposal is public information at this point, and everybody can have a look at it. The fact that the only news coming out is negative news. The only counselors that want to talk about it are just pointing out all the things that they don't like. Though they're not quantifying it. They're not putting forth any details. They're just saying the things to let the taxpayers know that it's bad for them, so they have their backs. But in actuality, when you read through it and you really dissect what's going on, it is the best municipal government stadium proposal, the most generous one, the one that the ownership is assuming the most risk in the entire country.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? What bothers me so much is that not a single Halifax councillor or anybody in Halifax has even said that yet. Listen, Halifax, despite the fact that it's the most generous agreement for a stadium possible in the entire country, despite that fact, you still can't handle it as a city, fine. You're just not a big enough city, and you're not to handle the CFL. Say that.
And here's what's embarrassing, because Halifax has said for years, okay, their hockey community, Andy, they think they're big enough for an NHL team. Honestly, how many times have you heard Halifax talk about the fact that they want an expansion NHL team?
Wow.
This is their chance to get a first real pro team. Yes, they got the Wanderers soccer team, but the Wanderers soccer team it's not even at the same level as the CFL.
No.
It's not even close to the same level as the CFL. If you're getting a lacrosse NNL team, which is great, but if you want to take a step towards a big-time professional team for your city, and think about the tourism dollars that you're not even going to have to spend every Sunday or Saturday when your game's on TSN, and they're talking about the city of Halifax and the ships are rolling into the port. This is nothing but good for the city of Halifax. And if you people can't get out from whatever it is you're behind and see that, I've never been so distraught with trying to push a product on a city. I can't believe that we're in this situation.
When you look at the proposal, all of the operating costs for this stadium, and it's not just a CFL stadium, it's going to be a year-round sports complex. It's going to have a sports dome that can be used during the winter, that will be partnered with Sports Nova Scotia.
It's already booked.
Exactly. Like it's a facility that Halifax does not have currently that would be made available to them, that 100% of the operating costs would be assumed by the ownership group, that the amount of money that they're asking the city of Halifax to contribute to it is to be recouped by a surcharge on the tickets and various things like that. Listen, we've talked to some people on the inside, and this is the only thing that we'll tell you, is for Halifax to get their money back on an annual basis, the stadium has to be roughly half, if not a smidge over half full.
Yeah.
That is it. Yet somehow not a single person feels that this is a good enough deal for the city of Halifax to make it worth a cent of their dollars to bring the CFL. So you know what? Just if you can't, just say it. Halifax is not fit for the CFL. It's not big enough for the CFL. Just say it, councillors, because you can't say anything good about this stadium proposal, which is, for a fact, the most generous stadium agreement that's been pitched in the entire country, more or less. I just don't get it. And there's still time, Ray, for the Schooners ownership group to pitch this and get them to see the light. But I like the reason why you're at 1% and I'm below 0%. Is that a story came out recently where Mayor Savage said you shouldn't be too optimistic about it. Though we voted against not reviewing the proposal, they did vote towards reviewing it in a much faster fashion. So they're trying to speed this up. They're trying to do a more abbreviated review of it, which just screams that, let's get this over with. We're not interested. So
listen, there's been some drop balls by all parties involved with this. Yeah. All right, all parties involved. The one last pitch I'm going to put out, I mean, I've already got a job possibly with the Ottawa Red Blacks.
That's right.
But let Andy and I run the Schooners. Okay, just give us control. We'll run the Schooners. We'll sell tickets, Andy.
We need the current ownership group to pay the operating costs of the stadium, though.
We will go out and market the crap out of this team and sell tickets and get corporate sponsorships and do all the things that need to be done for this team. There's no way it's going to take place in Moncton now after the attendance of the touchdown Atlantic.
We can almost confirm for you guys. We're not going to name any sources or anything like that, but we've had conversations on the inside of this entire thing, and we can tell you that Anthony LeBlanc was quoted in the most recent article that I was just talking about, saying that this final vote is coming up in about 6 weeks' time, and this is it. So either Halifax says yay or Halifax says nay. And if Halifax says nay, the whole idea of the Atlantic Schooners is gone. Not completely gone. Obviously, the idea of the Schooners has been around for years, but this Schoonership ownership group is Schoonership ownership group. Whatever. It's done. Moncton is not an option, guys. And the Touchdown Atlantic and the 10,000 ticket sales that happened at Touchdown Atlantic definitely goes into that. But there's more to it. But yeah, Moncton's not an option. So in 6 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever it is, when Halifax finally votes on this in their abbreviated look at this proposal, that's it, guys. That's it.
That's it.
So the only other thing we can really say is if you do listen to our podcast around the CFL and you really, we really appreciate that you do. We got into this because we saw the CFL as something that we wanted to get into. Ray is a Canadian football official, and I'm somebody. I wrote an article about it that was circulated very well, talking about how I used to laugh at the CFL, how I used to think that it was a stupid game, how I used to make fun of the CFL, and I forced myself to get into it and understand it. And then all of a sudden, we were covering it on our podcast, and out of the blue, we were gifted with the idea that we just may get a team. And Ray and I realized we need a team. I've said this before. A team, you don't just choose your favorite team. A team finds you, and a team did find us, and it was the Atlantic Schooners. And we got so entrenched in the idea of the Schooners coming, and we got so involved in the area in terms of the Schooners that if this doesn't happen, our hearts are not strong enough to stick with the CFL. We don't think so. Whether this podcast continues or not will probably be a little bit up in the air. If once we get the news, and that's really all we can say.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's been 3 years of covering the CFL now, Andy, and listen, I've loved every single episode. I've really enjoyed it. But again, Ottawa Red Blacks, when I first started watching them, it was great. Trevor moved out to Edmonton. That was a big loss for me. I try to watch Trevor in Edmonton. I try to watch Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But when the games come on in Atlantic Canada at 11 o'clock at night, it's really tough to follow those teams' bases.
It is.
So, but I do want to give a couple guys a shout out though, because some people that we've listened to, over our time of doing this podcast, the 2 and Out guys,
the 2 and Out guys, Travis and Brazilian Ty. I will continue probably to listen to that podcast.
I will. I love them, and listen, they've they don't know this, but they've taught me a lot over the last three years of being a CFL fan.
Yep.
You mentioned I'm an official, but you still got to know the league.
Oh my
right?
goodness, yeah, the Canadian ratio and all that stuff.
That's right. They know that. They know that stuff. And our buddy Mike with Podsky Wee Wee.
Podsky Wee Wee. Yeah.
We've taken time out. We all have what's called podcast blocks that we listen to now, or however you want to call it. But I have a loop of certain podcasts I listen to every week.
Yeah.
And those podcasts have been in my loop. So I thank you guys huge for all the knowledge you've given us over the last 3 years. Guys like Mike Shoesmith that I've connected with, even my good buddy now, Kelly Bale. The discussions I've had on Facebook with you guys and over the CFL, I love it. I really want to be a full-time CFL fan.
Yep.
But I need the Schooners here to make that happen.
Schooners have to happen for it to occur, guys. Otherwise, we're just, and it's the idea of the Schooners that has kept us going this long.
It has. All right, let's get into making some picks.
Well, Ray, I got some news for you. So last week, we tried another one where I had to make my picks, and you chose when to go opposite to make up some ground. We both ended up going 2-2.
Oh man!
I got my lock. You missed your, or I got my upset. You missed your lock. I'm 46-27, and you are 42-32. I'm 4 games ahead. And you got 4 games to make it up, and I'm 3 games ahead in the tiebreaker. So the competition is over.
All right. Well, listen.
However,
competition's over.
But let's see if you can tie it up. All right. Let's do this really quickly. Montreal at Ottawa. Do you want me to pick first this week, or do you want?
I'll go first.
Okay, you go ahead.
I'm taking Montreal. My buddy Vernon Adams Jr., another guy that Montreal is one of those teams, Andy, that they're only 10 hours away.
Yep.
Maybe Montreal could be a home team for me. It's tough, but I love this team. I'm taking Montreal.
Okay, so because I want you to know I'm doing this just to see if we can help you tie it up, which means you have to go 4-0 because I'm gonna go opposite. So I'm taking Ottawa at home. Okay. Hopefully Montreal doesn't really care. I mean, I don't know, but I'm gonna go with Ottawa. All right, Edmonton at Saskatchewan.
It's gonna be Harris's second game back.
Yep.
They can play a spoiler here for Winnipeg.
They can.
I'm going to take Edmonton in this game.
Oh, my goodness. All right, I'm taking Saskatchewan, and Ray is officially out, but that's okay. All right. Toronto at Hamilton.
Wow. Now, this is a big one because we thought Hamilton was going to sit everybody last week, and they didn't.
Yeah.
This game absolutely means nothing for Toronto, or for Hamilton, nothing.
Yeah. I still think Dane Evans will get out there for a little bit, though I don't know if he'll play the entire game. Anyway, go ahead.
I need to pick an upset this week, right?
No, this week you get a lock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Montreal will be my lock.
There you go. Okay.
I will take Hamilton.
All right, I'll take Toronto, and that will be my upset of the week. And Calgary at BC.
I'm going to take Calgary here.
All right. I'm all about BC, and I can't even think of their quarterback's name at the moment, but we'll go with that.
Okay.
Fantasy news, Ray. So last week, we both picked our teams. You didn't even bother disclosing yours. We were thinking, Hamilton's not going to play a bunch of players because I had a bunch of Hamilton guys. I ended up having my best fantasy week in about 10 weeks. I had 104.3 points, Ray. That puts me at 1,641 on the season. But here's the big news.
Yeah.
This moved me into second place in the First Down Sports League, and I'm only 1.4 points behind the first place person, which is Whitey9. I think that's Hot Shots buddy from BC.
Okay.
So I've got a lot to play for. I can take first place in FDS League. I only have 1.4 points to make up. Ray, you scored 50.4 points. You are at 1456.1. I'm almost 200 points ahead of you. So I mean,
you're 16.
Yeah, 1641, and you are
1456.
1456.
Okay, so how about we do this for this week?
Okay,
this will be our last fantasy week.
Yep.
Okay. This will be a video on our Facebook page next week
that we're gonna pick our fantasy teams.
So we already know I got 50 points in the bank.
You got 50 points.
Okay.
It was 25,
that's going
but
to
I'm
take
giving
me up
you 50.
to 1506.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you got 104.
So I got 100. I got
40 points to make
I
up.
got to make up. Here's what we're going to do, Andy.
Okay.
In week 21,
Yeah.
I'm going to pick my fantasy team, and I'm not going to disclose it here today.
Okay.
I'll disclose it on Facebook this week.
Okay.
I get 3 times my points for this week.
3 times.
3 times my points.
I'll give you an option. You can have 3 times your points, but you give up the 50 bonus. Or
So hold on. If that means if I get 100 points,
yeah,
that's 300. That's going to take me to 1800.
yeah,
And you'll get
right. Yeah. You'll get it right there. Like, you know, what you're asking for is a little much. A little much.
all right. How about 2 times my points?
How about this? I doubled you up this week. I did more than twice. I got more than double your points this week. 104, 50.4. All right. If you can double me up in the final week, I will give you the victory.
And the loser
Yeah.
gets a pie in the face.
Pie in the face.
Are we up for that?
So all you got to do is double me up. Deal. Pie in the face.
Pie
All
in the face.
Pie in the
There we
face.
go.
Steal.
Pie in the face.
Pie in the face.
I have to double you up. That's actually not. You don't want to look at doubling or tripling points here.
All you have to do is double up my points. The triple thing's a little crazy.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. Here we go.
All you got to do is double up my points. All right. That's it, guys. So,
Whoa! We didn't make our. Oh yeah, we made our picks. Sorry.
Yeah. I can give you my fantasy lineup for this week, but we're doing yeah.
I'll put my picks on Facebook page this week.
Yeah.
Andy, put yours on there, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. All right, guys. So you'll hear from us for this pie in the face video, and then we will probably return for some Grey Cup talk, and obviously we're waiting for the Schooners announcement, and we'll come back and talk a little bit about that. Otherwise, next season's up in the air with the Schooners decision, so we'll see. But it's been a blast, and we'll talk to you next week, and we'll see how this fantasy nonsense goes.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks again, guys, for all your time over the last 3 years for checking us out, and hopefully we can keep this thing rolling.
All right. Later.